Hello and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're making stuffed shells. So this is another one of those things that my grandma taught me to make. We're going to do it in 3 phases. We're going to make a sauce, we're going to cook some noodles, and then we're going to stuff the noodles and prepare them for baking. So start out with some olive oil in your pan for cooking, and to this you're going to add a third of a diced up onion. Then you're going to add 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, and we're going to cook this for a few minutes so that way we can get it cooked through, soften up the onions a bit, get the flavor going with the garlic. So as it's cooking, make sure that you've broken up all your pieces of onion that you cut. Sometimes they stick together, but as you move them around the pan, you can make them separate, especially as they start to soften up. They will easily split up into pieces. We don't want any large hunks of onion in this. So as you've stirred it through and gotten it to a point where it's pretty well cooked, we're going to prepare ourselves to add some ground beef to this, because that is the next step. So what you're going to need is at least a pound of ground beef. So go ahead and put your ground beef into the side of your pan. I always pull the onions to one side, so that way it gives them a chance to cook a little bit while I'm breaking up the beef, and then I will incorporate the two together. Don't worry about it, there's no wrong way to do this. You're going to end up cooking it all anyway. But just go ahead and break the beef up to where it's cooking across the bottom of the pan, so that way you don't have like huge chunks of it that are totally not cooking. Now, once you've gotten this heated up, you want to go ahead and move the onions into the beef and start mixing them together, because regardless if the onions are cooking on their own or cooking with the beef, they're still cooking. So we want to mix it through so that way the beef can get the flavor of the onion. So to this you want to add at least a half teaspoon of salt and a half teaspoon of pepper, because we want to give it a little bit of flavor. Our goal right now is to get this ground beef browned, and you want to make sure it is completely brown. So as it cooks, you want to flip it over, break it up, do whatever you have to. Just a reminder, when you do actually get to the point where your ground beef is brown and you might have oil from where you cooked it, you might want to take a spoon or something you can use to remove some of the oil. You don't want a really greasy sauce. Sometimes you can just take a large spoon and stick in there and like tilt the pan and bring it out and get rid of it. It is a wise choice because you don't want it overly greasy. Some of the grease is okay, but not a lot. So as you can see with my ground beef, it is starting to brown now. That's why I keep flipping, turning, and chopping it up, because we don't really need large hunks of beef in this. It's just not necessary. We're just going for a taste. This is going to give our sauce something. So as you can see, I have removed any grease I wanted to from mine, and I'm adding a 24-ounce spaghetti sauce. You can use traditional cheese, meat, whatever flavor sauce you want to use in this. It's just a quick way to get you a sauce in here, so that's why I'm using what I'm using. I'm using traditional. Now once you get this sauce in, you want to stir it through the meat and get everything incorporated together, so that way all your meat is coated with it and everything has a chance to kind of mingle, because we're going to let this simmer for a while before we take it off the heat. But what we're going to do first, and I know a lot of people are like, what are you putting in it? I'm going to put 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, and people are like, why are you putting sugar in? Well, when you use tomatoes, they're acidic. When you have a sauce, it's very acidic. So I put sugar in to counter the acidy taste of it, And it kind of balances out and it gives it a really wonderful flavor. You do not have to do this unless you want to. That's your choice. But I suggest trying it. And you don't have to use a lot of sugar. You can dial it back or however you want to do it. I would just taste it as I go to see what it tastes like. And then on top of this, we are going to add 1.5 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. That's going to punch the flavor up as well. So get that on top of there, and then we're going to mix it through and let this simmer for at least 10 minutes or so. Then we'll start to the next phase, which is going to be the noodles. So basically, once you've gotten this cooked through for the 10 minutes, you're just going to set this pan to the side. We're going to come back to it, but it'll just sit and do its own thing because, you know, it can be off on its own while we're cooking the water for the noodles. But we don't want to leave it on the burner. We don't want to ignore it. So I have a decently large pot, which I have filled quite a bit of water into, and I added some olive oil, and I'm going to add some salt. Because when we go to put in our jumbo shells, I'm going to put them in one at a time, but it's one of these things where I want to make sure they don't stick together. And the oil and the salt, well, they're going to help cook, but they also flavor a bit. So go ahead and drop your shells in. I just choose to do it individually rather than dumping a whole box, because this way I can see how broken up the shells are anyway before I cook them. Because if a shell is broken in half, you can't stuff it. So, but you are using the jumbo shells, which is a 12-ounce box. You can fit a lot of these into a big pan, so throw them in there. Now the thing is, when I make mine, I put them all in a certain pan and fill it up. Well, once I'm done with that, I start with another pan. So you can do more than one pan of these. But anyway, you're going to want to boil those shells for at least 7 minutes. They're not going to be fully cooked, but you want to stop it at that point, put them in some cold water, and let them wait. Now we're moving on to the stuffing mix, which is going to be your cheese. So we added 3 cups of cottage cheese, 1 cup of mozzarella, and then we're going to add a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. And mix that up a bit so that way you can get all these cheeses mixed through, because this is your next step, is mixing this stuff up, because we're getting ready to stuff. Now once you get the cheeses all mixed together, you're going to add an egg to it, because this is going to help bind it a little bit. So make sure you break open that yolk and then go ahead and stir this completely through. At some point right now, you probably want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees, because when we're done stuffing these, they're going to go in the oven for 30 minutes. So when you see me with my pan here in a second, I'm using a 9x13 pan. I'm coating it with some spray so that way stuff doesn't stick. And then you're going to take the sauce you already made and make a layer all across the bottom, because we want a decent layer of this underneath the shells. And go ahead and make sure that everything is covered on the bottom. If this is thick, it's okay. If you want it thinner, that's fine too. It's your choice of how to do this. And then we're going to take our shells, you're going to open them up with your fingers, scoop out some of the cheese that we got, and you're going to put it inside. And then once you get it inside, you're going to start making a row down onto the top of this. And that's what your shell looks like with the stuffed cheese in it. And we're going to keep doing this until we completely fill the pan. Now, if you have enough of this left over and you want to make more, then get another pan. It'll probably be a small pan. You could do one this size and then another half with what we have available to work with. And just continue to put these in one at a time until you fill the whole thing. And once you bake these in the oven, they come out looking something like this. I drizzled a little bit of the sauce over the top in rows just to give the top of it a look. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great day.